Okay. I managed to get connected.
All right.
And here I am. Hey, everybody. We made it. Just in time. Hey, a few people have popped in already. I see 4. Hello, everybody.
Awesome.
Ian says, welcome to the live stream. Please feel free, welcome to participate. Catherine, hello. Hi, Catherine. How are you? They changed our time. Jennifer says, hello. Hi. You have all kinds of fun little emojis
nice.
there. Yes. Yes, they changed the time on us last night, so although theoretically we got an extra hour sleep, it really doesn't feel that way.
That's very true.
Yeah. Bodies are like, but we're supposed to eat. Jessica says, hi, Siofra. It's been so long since I've been able to make a live. Well, welcome back. I'm glad to see that you're here. Moonfire Dawn says, hi. Hi, Moonfire. Erin says, hello. Hello, Erin. Ashley. Hello, Ashley. You must be joining us from far away where you're working. Catherine says, I'm doing better. I've a lap full of thread today. Oh, you must be sewing on something? Making some kind of a magical item or a household item or whatever? I like the upside down smile. I had Ruth says hi. Hi, Ruth. Welcome. Everybody's just jumping right in. I like it.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think I've told you this yet, but last night I woke up and I had wings flapping in my room over my body.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was sort of a surprise. Moonfire Dawn says, no extra sleep for me. I just stayed up until 3 a.m. instead of 2. Aww. Catherine says, I'm mending a patchwork coat. Oh, awesome. I like patchwork stuff. It's just so colorful. Jessica says, how have you been? I haven't been here since maybe springtime or so now. Ages. Well, yeah, we've been through all kinds of stuff. It's been pretty wild around here. Opal says, hello. Hi, Opal. I had my foot surgery done and it's all better now. I was able to take a bath without having to worry about keeping my foot out of the water. So that was very exciting for me. And I can walk without any discomfort at this point, so it's well healed. So that's been wonderful. So Tab Rock, okay, Taib. We'll call you Taib. I just found your channel yesterday. I am looking forward to binge watching your videos. Awesome. There's a lot of them. We have well over 100 videos at this point.
Sure, let us know what you want to find.
Yeah. Jessica says, oh, that's wonderful news. I'm so happy to hear that you're feeling better and that everything healed well. It seems to be. I mean, I went through a weird night where it itched insanely. And I was like, what? Why is it itching? But then it stopped, so that was good. Anjali says, hope you had a good Halloween. It was quiet. We stayed home. Nobody came to our door, which we decided not to encourage them since strangers knocking on our door right now with Ian's sister thing out there. It didn't seem like a good idea. We're still kind of like, ugh, from all that.
Yeah, it's probably going to take me a good month to recover.
It's going to take a while. Moonfire Dawn says, I've been sewing patches on my jean jacket lately. A bit of stitch witchery for this winter. Ooh. Anjali says, hope you feel well. Yes, I'm feeling pretty well. Everybody is... things are coming... They're calming down. We're getting into a routine. And things are more expected. So that has been a relief. but we still have that. We don't know when she might show up out of the blue over our heads, since we have no clue where she's at or when she might show back up again. But at least she's not living with us. so this is a good thing. It just means we have to be on alert a lot, but I'm sure people in lots of places have to be on alert because there's always something coming. Adam says, "Hey, Siofra." Hi, Adam. Welcome back. Yeah, so it's been. I had one of my dreams last night. I also haven't told you this either. It was when I first woke up. When I woke up in the middle of the night, I was having it actually. When everybody needed to go to the bathroom at the same time. It was very funny. And I had one of my traffic dreams, which tells me, like, my path and what might be in my way, or if something is in my way or whatever. And there was like a really close call with a very fast vehicle, and we managed to like get around it before it hit us, or get by it before it hit us, or something like that. It was close, like, right there. So I figure that means that, something's happening, coming, more than just for me. And I have my antenna out, and I'm watching for it, and we'll be fine. So it's always good. Adam says, "Can you explain exactly how you produced an artificial elemental spirit during your meditation? Can you explain the mechanics of how it happened?" I think that was someone else who did that. That was the woman in Texas who created a fire elemental when she was meditating, and she was visualizing fire around her in all of her meditations, and the fire spirit took on her shape, and people were seeing her elsewhere.
Dion Fortune did that, had a similar thing happen too.
But that would be, I didn't do that one, I don't think. I'm not recalling doing one. And I'm not sure how artificial elemental spirits are. If they're elemental spirits, they're not artificial, they're made out of elements. So, but you're self-created in that sense, not generated by everything else that's already out there. So I guess that would be what you mean by that. And she was a healer, and her doppelganger fire spirit caused difficulties throughout the community. People were actually getting sick and whatnot. So it was sort of wreaking havoc because it thought that it was human for a while, because it had taken on a human person's visage. So when I did the opening up of the door between the worlds to cross over the stuck spirits that were there on the land when I was in Texas, when I learned how to open up that portal, was right after that the elemental spirit was there, and I drained it into the center of the planet, into the Earth's fire, and rejoined it with its natural element, and then it was gone. So I don't know what else to say about that. Anyway.
Of course, there are instructions for doing such a thing, but they're out there.
Yeah. There's plenty of instructions for stuff. Adam says, "Wow." Okay. It was kind of a wow ritual. It was very impressive. It would have made a fantastic movie, and no one would have believed it was real. So I consider, when reality is better than CGI movies could possibly make them, that's a good sign. My particularly favorite moment, I think, during that ritual was when we had ball lightning explode over our heads, when the spirits went through to the other side and the portal closed behind them. It was very spectacular. And I thought, yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. No one would believe it, though. So we have like a full moon lunar eclipse coming up on Tuesday, which is going to be interesting since it's actually happening during our election cycle and leading right up to it. So I'm sure it's going to be adding a lot of extra energy to the whole process and making it even more intense than normal, although it's looking to be a pretty intense event.
Yeah, I might want to do something and try and get in touch with the energy a little bit. Not of the politics of the moon, mind you.
Anjali says, I have had both sylphs and earth fae in my garden area around my house. However, they had begun to become territorial with one another. I had spoken to them to help rectify so they may share, and left poems and letters in my altar, and lots of honey fungus mushrooms have appeared in my garden, so I'm not sure if that is an indication of peace or the earth fae. Well, I mean, you think that they can figure out how to get along themselves,
Yeah, that's
considering they coexist, and sylphs are not fae, they're air spirits. I'm not sure what kind of a conflict that they would have, but hey, peace is always a good idea.
Yeah, I would think a conflict unlikely, but then, like people, you have individuals too, as far
True.
as elementals and sylphs. So
Well,
you
it
never
could
know.
mean that the sylphs are trying to give somebody a warning about something, and it's an agitation because they're air.
Well, that's true. That's definitely an indication we got from our Mercury being. He expressed that agitation a couple of times, just as agitation, and we had to figure out what to do about it.
Yeah. But hopefully that worked out. Sylphs are kind of hard to get in touch with, so if you have some hanging around, I'd pay some attention to them because they tend to be relatively shy and ephemeral.
Well, apparently they are shy. From what Barden says, he gives the seals in the names of them, but no further description for the air spirits. Those are the only ones he don't describe because they're apparently shy and I don't know, easily offended, maybe.
I don't know. So Adam says, okay, but can you explain what determines what spirit species type will manifest unconsciously from us? For example, when we are meditating, what are the factors that cause it to manifest as one compared to another? I would think it would be, in her case, it seemed obvious because she focused on a flame around her body the entire time. And every time she did it, and so she was putting a lot of energy into that manifestation of the fire, and putting her all into the imagery and so forth. So that's what I would assume, and that's one of the reasons for learning grounding exercises and so forth, so that we're not accidentally doing things like that. If we're going to do it, we should be doing it on purpose, or we shouldn't be doing it at all. It's like learning how to control our magical abilities and our unconscious thoughts and so forth is part of the process. That's sort of the whole point of this path, in my opinion. It's like that way you're being more proactively responsible for what comes off of you, and so yeah. Adam says, oh, Shay says hi Shay. Adam says, like, can you explain why a fire elemental was created instead of a shadow being? I think I covered that. So Eve says, merry meet. Hi, Eve. And Ian says, hi, Shay. Welcome, Eve. Angela says, blessings, Siofra and chat. Hi, Angela. And Ian says, exclamation point.
That's because I forgot the one after Eve Wolf. See?
Ah.
She was
Eve
supposed to
says,
get
glad
an
I made it,
exclamation
Ian.
point, too.
Angela says, welcome, Eve Wolf. Cool name. Jennifer says, I've got a lot of mushrooms and fungus around my house. Well, it's that time of year, at least around here. Wet weather brings out the mushrooms, the fruiting bodies of the mushrooms. The fungus is there all the time, but we only see a small part of the body as the fruiting part, which is the mushrooms that we can pick and eat. Canary says, hello,
Hi,
all.
Canary.
Hi, Canary. Boy, people are very creative with all those images and symbols and things like that. It's like, Angela says, the fungus is among us more this year. I've seen a lot of the fruiting bodies this year, more than usual. I bet they have, like, bumper crop years, just like everything else.
Oh, I'm sure they do. Depending on what type of mushroom you're talking about, they can
Yep.
they can have some pretty specific growing conditions, so they can vary a lot.
Well, kind of wood or soil, and so forth that they grow on. they're very
Well, it's
tuned into specific kinds of things.
like pine mushrooms.
Right, grow under pine trees.
Yeah.
Because they like the pine. Angela says, oh, yeah, I charged crystals in a toadstool patch once.
Seems as good as any other place.
Yeah. Catherine says, hi, Canary. Yeah, so.
It looks like we're going to have to make a video about the evocation we did.
Yeah, we did the thing on Mercury. We started to try and flesh out our planetary videos. And I thought we had already done the video about the evocation that we did. And we hadn't. So we're going to need to do that now so we can add it to the list for Mercury. Because it would be the right timing for that.
And we still should schedule one or two because we got so much Mercury incense left.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I'd like to use, not just
some
have
of
it
that.
sit in a jar. And,
Yeah. Okay, Canary says, we on magic mushrooms? Well, not in particular, just mushrooms in general. Adam says, have you ever met the elemental kings before? If so, can you explain your experiences with them? Well, whenever I am casting a circle, I call them forth and I have pretty good visuals of what they look like, and the ones that I am talking to are Peralda, Jin, Nexa, and Gob. And they have a very specific attire and shape for me when I do that. But I haven't had a one-on-one conversation. It's like an office. It's different spirits can take on their role, but they have that look for me when I see them. And it's like they're there to protect.
Oh, yeah. And that's kind of a specific aspect of them. I mean, there's also the ones in Barden's book. So, it's, I'm not sure that kings, I mean, I suppose it's an appropriate word, but they're not, like Siofra was saying, it can be more of an office, which means you might get a different individual if you evoke the same being, potentially. You might get different individuals that are fulfilling that office that's going to be that being for the day. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's kind of like, any leadership role in politics as an earthly example. I mean, it's the same office, same title, different people taking on
different
the
people
job.
Doing it, yeah.
At different times.
And that's my understanding of how that works mostly, unless there's some specific reason.
So Canary says, anyone ever experienced a personality clash between deities? Should I be concerned if this happened? Well, I've not experienced it, but then a lot of that has to do with the practitioner, and I think that's my opinion.
Yeah, I kind of agree too. I haven't found any of those issues myself, though there are some that are specifically, I think, in like Santerio and Palo, that specifically don't like each other, but other than ones that are, that's part of the attributes of their character, that they don't like the other guy, and it's kind of built in some of those, but other than just those few things, I think mostly they're all pretty compatible with each other.
That's one of the reasons why I call myself a universalist eclectic, because I work with a lot of different deities from different pantheons, and they get along because I get along, I think. I don't know. So Joy wants to know, what does our Mercury incense consist of?
Well, I don't know. Let's see. Don't know the whole list off my head, but it's
Mastic.
Mastic is the main one.
Juniper.
And, mastic, juniper, valerian root, juniper wood, which has an orange color appropriate to Mercury.
And a wonderful smell.
Yes.
Surprisingly.
And some, let's see, juniper, valerian root, mastic, frankincense, that's all I can remember right now. I can look it up real quick. But it's from Barden's book, so it's not too hard to find. You can look it up.
So Jennifer wants to know how to break a smoking curse?
Probably.
Okay. Whenever you have an addiction, physical addiction, you always create a larva that goes along with that. And so if you're trying to approach it from a magical point of view and assist in a physical recovery and getting off of it as a substance, you can do a cord cutting kind of ritual. You can use your athame or a wand and try and cut the cord between you and the larva that you've created, and then specifically try and starve it. I've been thinking the last while of trying to put one in a jar and see if that makes it more effective to help with that. So that's an experiment that may be coming up to find out. But the idea is that as soon as you decide to stop doing an addictive activity, the larva starts to fight it because it believes on some level that it is alive and you are trying to kill it. And it wants to stay alive, and making you to continue to do the activity is how it stays alive, even though it's not technically alive. It's just more of a thought form type of thing.
Best solution is to starve it out by not giving in to what it wants, and then they'll eventually die off and won't be there anymore. But it does take a certain time afterwards.
So Corey says, made it earlier this time, still curious about motherhood rituals or practices. Yeah, the thing that I find interesting from a magical perspective about motherhood is that basically women become a doorway between the spirit world and the physical world to allow spirits to incarnate into bodies and then come into this place. So while a woman is pregnant, there's this open doorway between the other side and her, and coming in here, and there's just so many different ways that you can work with that and so forth. And then, like, when my daughter was going into started her first menses and going into her beginning of motherhood, I did a cord cutting ritual with her where we ran down the beach together tied with a cord, and I cut the cord and let her run on alone to represent her leaving me behind and becoming her own person. So I think that those kind of rituals help us to separate ourselves from our role and allow our children to become their own people. And it's a powerful psychological kind of thing. And I know there's like naming ceremonies. Wicca's got some naming ceremonies where you're dedicating a child to the goddess or whatever at their birth. And I'm not sure how I personally feel about that, because I don't like the Christian version of it. Because I think that, the dedication to some kind of a deity is a personal one, and it ought to be chosen when a person is conscious of what they're doing, has enough information to make that kind of a decision for themselves. But it's not an uncommon practice. Yeah, so just some basics. I'm thinking about trying to put some of those together. There's a lot of rituals you can find online that you can adapt, and that's usually where I've gotten them, since I'm no longer in the mother. I'm in the crone at this point for sure. But yeah. Canary says, I've had someone else come in from a different pantheon, and my main people don't seem to like him very much, not fighting or anything like that, but it's very, very strange experience. Well, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's up to you to decide who gets to hang out with whom, I've met some people who've said that there's certain gods and goddesses that are very jealous and don't want you to be dealing with or, with anyone else at the time. My personal opinion at that would be, well, if you can't get along, then get along, go away, move on to the next person on your list. It's entirely up to you if you're going to choose to work with a deity or not. It's not because they go like, hey, tick, 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 I like you. Doesn't mean you have to go like, okay, we have free will, after all. Adam says, have you ever seen an archon in the astral before? I don't know what this means. What's an archon? Explain what you mean by an archon. It's not a term that I use in particular.
I have no opinion on the subject because I know nothing about it.
Mary says, never had anything like this before, even when I've had different beings from all over the freaking place. And at Adam, I'm not convinced that they exist, to be honest. I used to believe in them, and I've come across plenty of negativity, but never an archon. I am interested if there are archons around. Angela says, the idea of thought form larva makes me think of maggots. Ew. Well, yeah, that would be a good image. Ick. Ew. And at Angela, why? Now I'm thinking of it. Shay says, that was an amazing rite of passage for your daughter. Yeah, you were at that, I believe. And when we went all out, we had the men at home cooking all the red food they could find because, blood is red. And us women went, and we went to a hot tub and gave her our wisdom, etc., and then went down to the beach and ran down the beach, and I did that cord cutting. I think I got that idea from one of Starhawk's books, but I don't remember. It's like, you read things and they resonate or they don't, and if they resonate, something can come out of it. Adam says, Canary, I think I might have seen one before, but I'm not exactly sure. Angela says, sorry, Canary. Now you're thinking of it. Adam says, but you won't believe what it looked like if I tell you. Well, considering the fact that they're spirits, they can look like anything they want. So just because they look like one thing for you doesn't mean they're going to look like the same thing for someone else. It really is variable when it comes to that. Canary says that Adam, maybe they keep themselves hidden. Vanessa V says, hello. Hi, Vanessa V. Adam says that, Canary, do you astral travel? Canary says, that about the God. Hey, Tick, Rick, Tick, like you was very relevant. Thanks for that. And Canary says that, Adam, now I want to know.
I just did a quick lookup of Archon, and the only thing that they had mentioned was the use of them in Athens as a ruling class.
Well, yeah, they were like the kings, rulers. Yeah. But that's not an astral entity. So it would seem to be like the king of an astral plane, or maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Might be just nomenclature. That might be just a different name for something we already know of.
Well, there's a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is like, variations in words and phrases and so forth, and new definitions of things, and then there's the, trends that suddenly people are out in it. Shay says, yes, I was there. We embarrassed the heck out of your daughter, sharing our wise, ribald wisdom in the hot tub after the ritual on the beach. Yeah. Adam says, it looks like a biological form of a machine. Well, I've definitely not run into one of those.
Yeah. Of course, H.R. Geiger did a lot of interesting paintings.
Of machines?
Well, it's like machine and human blends, or, things like that.
Is he the guy that created the Geiger counter?
No.
A different
guy.
Geiger. Okay.
Yep.
I just thought I'd wonder. So many of them have their own name attached to everything.
Yeah, no, but if you look at his stuff, you'll find it kind of interesting, although I don't care for it so much as art, but it's interesting to see people blended into things and shapes and machinery and stuff like that. It's actually pretty cool artwork.
Well, when it comes to astral planes, it's like it's a amorphous, non-physical reality that can take on absolutely any shape. And so it can take stuff out of your own subconscious, out of your culture, present itself as something you're familiar with or unfamiliar with, depending on what its goal might be. And so, it's not like you're looking at a galaxy through a telescope and you can read the redshift and figure out what's going on there. It's not solidified like that. I don't know what else to say, except it's up to interpretation and very subjective, and may have no actual reality except in your own experience. But our experiences are real to us, as far as that goes, and deciding what we want to do with them or about them is certainly the important question. Or he says, I think Archon, the term, comes from Gnostic texts, entities that feed off of negative energy. Well, if there are beings that feed off negative energy, I definitely haven't met one. At least not in a long time, since I don't let them do that. And I don't have much negative energy for them to feed off of.
Yeah, that's less negative energy in the start with. Probably don't want to come around much.
Well, yeah. Not much of a food source, right? If you don't have any negative energy for them to juice up on. I mean, there are so many different possibilities and things that are out there. I don't know. Adam says at Canary on time, I saw it near my door, but I only saw it for like half a second. It looked like a cross between an insect and a machine. Well, it sounds like something you don't want to have hanging around, so I would tell it to go away and leave you alone.
Really sounds like Geiger's artwork, though.
Does it? Biological cross between an insect and a machine. Canary says, since I connected with Isis, the goddess, I have not had a problem since, but I did at the beginning when I first started. Well, sometimes having the right energy around you, it can really filter out some of the crap so that you don't have to deal with it. And when you're taken under the wing of a specific deity, that can actually change your psychic and emotional and spiritual landscape rather significantly. And then, there's more of a yes, you're allowed, no, you're not allowed kind of thing happening automatically. Adam says Geiger's artwork, ?
Yeah, H.R. Geiger.
So Angela says, I had the same calm after connecting with my matrons. I think some spirits don't like being around deity energy.
Actually, it's G-I-G-E-R. Sorry. Geiger, G-I-G-E-R. H.R. Geiger, who did the artwork.
Well, you can type that up. So then we can see how it's spelled.
G-I-G-E-R. That's all. Sorry.
No E.
Just wanted to look it up real quick. Yep.
That's the Geiger counter Geiger, is with the E. The other Geiger has no E in the beginning, only at the end. Okay.
I'll type it up.
Okay. Canary says that Adam, I have seen art like that. I wouldn't try and connect with it, in my opinion. Sounds like something warped, but then again, that's what archons are meant to be.
Yeah, that's one of the things. They call them nightmarish works. And I'll show you one real quick here.
Oh, I've seen that one.
Yeah.
That's the one that they made the alien out of.
Yeah, that's one of his most common ones.
Yeah. The movie Alien, the thing that comes out of everybody's stomach or whatever.
Yep, that's the famous one.
Yeah.
Necronom 4, it's called.
So Angela says, makes me think of the guy who makes depictions of fae beings out of preserved insects.
Anyway, sorry.
Okay.
Didn't mean to go off subject.
Canary says that Angela, I've seen something like that rub me the wrong way, to be honest. Yeah. It's like art is very subjective, so.
Yeah, I agree. They're interesting. His stuff is interesting and fascinating to look at, but on some level, I just kind of end up going like, it's not quite to my taste. They're interesting to look at, but I don't want one hanging on my wall, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, people can read what Adam said, but I see no reason to say it out loud. Angela says, I was a little weirded out by it, but to each their own. Yep. Yeah, I'm not into invasion theories. That's how I felt about it. I didn't want one in my room. Yeah, yeah, I don't blame you. And that's the thing. The things that we focus on and the things that we choose to have around us will affect our spirit and our energy and our thoughts and the way we see the world and so forth. It's pretty evident right now.
That's an important thing people should be more aware of. I mean, seeing a certain color every day will affect you. Something simple like that, You should be aware of all that stuff that's going around in the environment and how it can affect a person and make you think. Even words you use in your mind can make you think a certain way. And if you pick a different word, it'll make you think of the object or whatever it is differently. Even though we're talking about the same object, just gives a different feel to things,
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's like, it's up to us to decide what we're going to focus on and what we're going to do with the experience that we're having. And if it makes you go down a really dark, negative hole, then I don't see the appeal. I mean, I see the appeal for facing our internal negativity and turning it into something that we can either understand or use effectively or not be controlled by. But yeah, with my art, like this, I made this, so this is the kind of stuff I like to have around me, something that expresses my inner being somehow, things that I enjoy seeing and looking at and so forth.
Well, Shay, that's an interesting reference. Thank you. Um, I'll have to look that up. I didn't know anybody used his artwork for album covers.
Okay. I don't think we need to continue on with that part of the conversation because we have nothing to add to the subject.
Yeah.
Moonfire Dawn says Geiger did a lot of old album covers, and the microphone stand Korn uses also inspired a Metallica song or three. That's the extent of my fandom.
Well,
Canary,
didn't know that either.
Yeah. Canary says, I've been putting my own drawings of deities I work with and other positive things to try and keep up the vibe. I used to hide all my more spiritual drawings for fear of judgment, but no, I have all of this crazy stuff just on my wall, and now I have all this crazy stuff just on my wall. Well, good for you.
Oh, good. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's called owning your space, and it's important for you to do that. Own your space, your internal space, your external space. It's all a part of you.
And you can certainly bring things into it that you want to bring in. That's why the Hindus and things in the guru worship, they're not supposed to be worshiping the guru physically as a person, but they're trying to contact with the energy that the guru channels through, and they're trying to pull that through a variety of Shaktipat through the picture into their living space. And that technique can be used for anything. If you want to bring the mindset of Da Vinci into your house,
You have this.
or Van Gogh, you can go by Starry Night. That was Van Gogh, right? Yeah. And you can get a little bit of that mindset that was behind his artistry. I think that's what makes some of that art special, is the fact that there's perceptions that you can reach through that artwork outside of your normal perceptions by picking up on the energy of the artist.
And the same with music.
Yeah.
Like when my son was learning how to play classical music, he didn't just play the piece that was on the music. He studied the person who wrote the music and what was happening in their lives when they wrote it and composed it, and how they were feeling and what emotion they were trying to express through the sounds that they put to paper and then to piano or whatever. And when he played, you felt all that. It's like the big, huge difference between something technical and accurate and then something emotive and contextualized.
Yeah, and it's nice to get in touch with that stuff. That's why I wish I had some access down here to good art to look at, but because I lived in Washington, Washington, D.C., I'd have lots of it available,
I got to go to the National Museum in D.C. once, and it was pretty interesting to see the stuff in person. Very different feel than just seeing a picture in a book, for sure. Angela says, I have paintings of my matrons all over my space. When family asks, I simply say, I don't know what I was painting. It just came to me. They call them beautiful. Good.
Cool.
You don't have to explain everything. People don't necessarily understand.
Especially explaining art isn't really, to me, a thing. I mean, art is. You should take it for what it is. Explaining it just puts it in the realm of the mind and off the realm of the felt and experienced.
Yeah, sometimes intellectualizing things definitely ruin them.
Not that we shouldn't ever use our minds.
No, but...
Not saying that, but yeah.
Yes, it can. It depends on how far we go into it. So Canary says that Angela love it. That's really interesting about the art. Frankie says, hey, Siofra and Ian, any tips on record keeping or keeping a grimoire? I want to get better, but I seem to always forget to write things down, get too intimidated, etc. Thanks so much. Start a daily journal just as a practice, and don't think of it as necessarily a magical journal to start with, maybe. And just towards the end of the day, write down your impressions of the day or things that happened to you or so forth, and turn it into a dream journal. And then when you wake up in the morning, you can write down any dreams you had. Then you can start making correlations there. But, I do research. I go in crazy research mode, and then I lose the notebook that I wrote it all down in. I'm currently hoping that the notebook on the pillows that I made, the dream pillows, is going to come back at some point, because I did this huge research project looking into cultural definitions of all these different plants and trying to find plants to do what I wanted to that were like universally accepted as this kind of energy across the board.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the house, I have a notebook full of that with the formulas that I created.
Well, made these wonderful dream pillows too,
and they still smell fantastic.
I mean, like these are like
25
years ago.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. So, trying to be too hard on yourself. You can use technology to help with that. I have on my computer, I've got folders of rituals and research on different gods and goddesses and subject matter and rituals I've written and that we've done and poems I've found and so forth. And, the original idea of the grimoire was that it was a handwritten book that was passed down to the student after their initiation, and then they were supposed to write that specific book exactly the way it was presented, including with all the errors and so forth that might be in it, because it was a tradition that they were keeping alive. And I think that it's not necessarily that anymore. It's like you can have a book on spell work that you've done, or impressions that you've had, or poetry that you like, or rituals that you've done, or research on, the heavens or astrology or the holidays. It just depends on the mood I'm in. I've got books on crystals that I've researched. I know where that one is, currently at least. I just gather notebooks and look. I like loose leaf books, because then as your understanding or your knowledge base changes, you can add things in or take things out, and then you're not messing the whole thing up, because it's not like one solid book that you can't.
I agree.
And people print them up, and they just do all sorts of stuff. So, people don't have to do it the same way. We know a local witch that every time she does a ritual, she does an entire book just about the ritual, and melts candles all over the pages. And that's how she was taught, and that's what she does, and that's part of her process. But I'm probably not going to do that. So, Angela says, paint is fun to scry in sometimes. I notice things in the paintings themselves that come and go. If you don't have a scrying mirror, try painting on canvas and letting it dry. Interesting idea. Canary likes that idea.
Oh yeah, scrying and painting is, you can basically scry in anything once you figure out, how to get that. For me, like, it always comes like a mist or a gray, something, and not always bubbling, but sometimes. But yeah, scrying coffee or,
tea and
really whatever. Yeah.
I like the sky. Clear blue sky is a really great place for me to scry.
I recently just discovered, like as in yesterday, a new way to scry within my own hands with nothing else.
Cool.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome.
Kind of came to me.
So Adam's asking Canary a question about astral trips. Canary says, I have a scrying mirror saved up for it, and I can't use it very well, but my wardrobe mirror works perfectly. Awesome. Moonfire Dawn says, my uncle used to work in D.C. Lots of vibes at the Smithsonian. Creeped me out as a kid, but in a fun way. Well, I actually, as I lived in the area when I was younger, and I was a Girl Scout, and I worked at the Natural History Museum, and I loved going into the crystal section and looking at the Hope Diamond and, all the other giant jewels and stuff that they had there. And
yeah, you got to be careful when you get more sensitive, though, because you pick up more and more of the past that happened around those objects.
And I had that problem during there was a Ming Dynasty, I think it was the Ming Dynasty display, and I started getting faint and dizzy, and I had to get out of the room because I was like, images and things were coming so fast.
Recommended to look at things that give you a good feelings, and good energy.
So Canary says that Adam, I've been to an Egyptian-looking place. I've been a place with caves and has dreams about magical islands, but what's dream and what's astral sometimes gets mixed up. Sometimes it's obvious, like. Ewu says, hi all, hope everyone is well. Hi.
Hi.
Wow, Adam says, that sounds cool. Angela says, the most vivid scrying experience was a scary spirit face appearing a candle jar I was staring at, and then another spirit figure pushed it away. I watched the scary face get scared, then seemed to go. Awesome. Then the other figure bowed towards the flame and stayed. I fell asleep sometime after. Sounds like a good protector. It's like, I'm sorry, you're not allowed here. Off you go.
Yeah, I was actually scrying a picture of our guru that we got Shaktipat from in Portland. And I thought it was interesting. His face changed to a woman with brown hair. I'm not sure of the relevance of that. Maybe that was somebody who used to be in a past life or something.
Was that Swami Chitanananda?
Yeah.
I don't think you ever told me about that particular.
That's because that was just yesterday.
Oh, okay. Well, that explains it.
So,
you were looking at his photo. Gotcha.
Yeah, if you do that much, a lot of times you can see the gurus or whatever will seem to be moving in the photo.
Well, he certainly gave me all kinds of visions when we were there in person. Yeah. That was pretty awesome. Canary says, don't get me on tea scrying. If I start that, I will be sad at People House when I get bored and be staring aimlessly into my tea, probably smiling at it creepily when I see things in it. Frankie says, wonderful, thank you. You're welcome, Frankie. Moonfire Dawn says, new tech witches use their dark phone screen to scry. I saw one of the Pharaoh displays in Chicago, and it was an overwhelming vibe. Yeah, it can be. Michael says, hi, everyone. Just got here. Hope all is well. Hi, Michael. And
all is great.
We're pretty good
as far
today.
As we know.
As far as we know. Canary says, I don't want anything getting stuck attached to my phone. Yeah, don't need spirits ending up screaming at people on the other side. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea not to use your phone for that, because who knows, maybe your stuff will stop working, and then that would be really annoying. So Michael says, question for Ian. Do you think the Rose Cross ritual is necessary, especially after doing the LBR?
Well, that's a question I'm not quite up to answering totally, because it's been so long since I took a look at the Rose Cross ritual. But I remember the basics with the incense and drawing the rose crosses at the corners, and I believe my takeaway at the time was that it was mostly for trying to be unnoticed, like appearing invisible, that kind of thing. So, whereas the banishing ritual of the pentagram, if you're using that for protection, lights up the pentagrams and the circle and everything, making it visible on the other planes, which is part of its purpose. But my understanding was that the Rose Cross ritual was more of a, I'm going to conceal myself in this mass of mist over here kind of thing. So I would have to look at it again to know if that's accurate. That was when I was first starting out, and I really don't remember it all that well. I can do more research on that, because I have the literature if we want, and go further into that if you'd like. But that was my initial impression.
Canary says, I made a crystal grid on my Xbox. I don't know why I put it there, don't ask me, and now it's fried. Oh. Ian discovered that he had very large electromagnetic field the other day, and he kept interfering with his own sound system.
Yeah, yeah.
Apparently.
Well, you go taking things apart, I was exposing myself to an optocoupler with an exposed lamp filament, and apparently the lamp filament picked up 60 hertz buzz from me, so yeah, not that exciting.
Well, I don't know. It's interesting that we have an electromagnetic field that can interfere with electronics.
Oh, yeah, you can hear it. buzz more and more and more the closer I'd get. Especially I sit down and it would buzz, and I stand up and it would quit.
Seemed like you were definitely the source of the problem.
Yeah, well, we all pick up so much RF, just 60 hertz radiation from lights and everywhere, and we re-radiate it like an antenna.
So Moonfire Dawn says, good point about phone scrying. I never tried it, but now I really won't. Michael says, gotcha. Thank you for answering. It's okay. I look up to you two as mentors in our practice. I just thought I would ask. You're welcome.
So yeah, I haven't. When I was doing the LBR, I certainly didn't do the Rose Cross ritual. After that, I felt that there was certainly no need for it after the full banishing. But I think that was the main thing. Banishing can get you noticed, whereas the other was like to stay out of sight, kind of.
Moonfire Dawn says, ouch, Canary, Xbox ain't cheap. Canary says, wow, Magneto incarnate. And then at Moonfire, I know it's not I'm warranty either. I'm trying to find it funny rather than be upset. Must be out of warranty. Michael says, gotcha, Ian. Thank you so much. Cool. We're eyebrowing each other across the room going, what now? We're ready for whatever comes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My mind is blank at the moment.
Well, that's usually what happens when you're put on the spot. Michael says, as far as crystals go and using them with geometry, okay. I tend not to make geometric shapes out of them. I tend to make energetic shapes. Does this amplify our energy? I think it depends on the crystals and what you're doing with them. I think it can, definitely depends.
Yeah.
I can affect like the energy of an area by setting my wands out with a certain flow in mind in order to change the energy field of what's happening around our space. I did that at the cabin when we were there. Pretty much we were there 4 years in a row, and I think for 3 of those years I did that.
Yeah.
And so it's going to depend. I know people get into these crystal grids and so forth, and you can get plaques with them all set up, and they use the same crystals or several different crystals in order to make a grid pattern and whatnot. And
go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I'm not sure exactly what the intended effect is of that, or if it has the effect they're intending. With me, it's like, I have an energy here I don't care for, and I have an energy over here that I want to increase, and so I'll like arrange crystals around the stuff I'm trying to transform and bring it into where I want it to be and encourage that, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know about the geometry, but I will add that Barden recommends different crystals and things, though he doesn't make much use of them in his books in general. He does mention some specific uses, like using amber for the electrical fluid, and rock crystal, by which I assume he means quartz. That's my assumption. He actually says rock crystal to gather the magnetic fluid, so he certainly uses them in that fashion. And I guess, yeah, if somebody was of that mindset, they could bring the geometry into it and such, but I'm so bad at math it wouldn't be me.
Sacred geometry.
Well, yeah, I think it could be used, yeah. But you have to know something about it, which I don't.
So Canary says, I'm going to go staff making with my friend. She always finds the best tree branches sturdy to LOL. Any tips? I don't know what tips to give. Whatever feels right, and obviously offerings and permission and so forth.
Pardon me, I've got some allergies going on.
And Michael says, thank you both so much. As far as building energy, what are suggestions? Yeah, and well, you look at the different kinds of crystals and what they're traditionally used for, and then you look at yourself and see what you need. So, what kind of energy are you trying to build? Is it like healing energy? Is it like calming energy? Does it have like an elemental feel to it? Like for metabolism, you'd want probably something fiery in order to increase, if you're trying to increase metabolism, something watery if you're trying to decrease metabolism, so it's a huge range of things. There's some crystals that are just really nice to hold because they,
Yeah.
like use them as worry
And, you know,
stones, carry them in your pocket, see
on
how you
a
feel.
in a basic sense, I should say that you can bring in any energy you want as long as you're aware it's out there and that you can bring it in and work with it. So any of the various types of energy, energy from the sun, whatever it may be.
Yeah. So Canary says that Michael, don't do it on your expensive electronic equipment. Yeah, considering her experience with that, I would understand why she would say that. And Michael said, great suggestions. I'm going to ponder. Jennifer says, do you know the history of the 13 crystal skulls? Well, I've looked into it a couple of times, and it's not as exciting anymore as it used to be because more and more of them are being found out to be like faked. But yeah, I thought they were pretty awesome at the time.
I just typed something in, it didn't come through. Anyway, I was trying to say thank you, Canary, for being here. I don't know what I was typing, but it didn't show up.
Oh well, that's it. Your electrical energy, magnetic personality is interfering with your computer because we're talking about it. Ewu says there was a strong windstorm the other day, knocked down many branches all over my town. Would this be good wood to work with? Well, yeah, I think so.
A couple things to think about with that. Number one is it's going to have a slight aspect of the astrological imprint of when it came off. So it'll have those astrological aspects, and then it might have a bit of that energy of the storm left in there. So you have to decide about that.
Or it might be just the right kind of energy you're looking for.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah.
It might be perfect, depending on the type of wood and everything else. So it's all, yeah, all dependent. What you're after, what you're looking for.
Neri says that, Michael, you're welcome. At least someone can learn from my blunder. Michael says, always learning. Yeah, that brings up the whole Cassandra syndrome. Not everyone learns from other people's blunders. That looks like an ouchie.
Yeah, sorry.
But yeah, it's one of those things. Is like some people learn from other people's mistakes, and some people don't. Some have to make their own. My daughter seems to be one of those people. She really wants to make her own mistakes. She doesn't want anyone to tell her how to do it. So.
And then she does.
And then she does. And then it's hands off and allow her to do her thing and learn or don't learn depending on what's going on. It's interesting. But yeah, sometimes it's very annoying to see what's coming and have no one believe you and do anything about it. It's just the way it is, though. I blame Cassandra for all of it. It was all her fault. Ewu says, thank you for all your advice. Yeah, I was curious if the wood would carry sadness from being broken from the windstorm. I'll be gentle with the wood. I don't think sadness necessarily would be the energy that it would have, but it could. Depends.
Yeah, it would probably have some of that, a little bit of that violent storm energy, but I wouldn't think it would carry sadness or have anything negative about it like that.
Well, I mean, animals eat their branches and...
Well, yeah, and what energy from the storm that was in it probably wouldn't be that much of its percentage of its energy anyway. It's just a little thing like the astrological time that it broke off and things like that get imprinted.
Well, some years I've thought of going around and when people put their piles out in front of their houses, when they're trimming their yards and stuff, and thought about harvesting some wood from that, but it's never felt right because I don't know the tree or the
Yeah,
bush.
well, and then if you harvest it yourself, you can take
Yeah.
get the spirit of that bush and ask it to remain in there when you do it.
Right. You can't do that if you're just picking it up from
finding
nowhere.
one. But,
So if you want, it depends. If you want to have the tree's already gotten rid of the branch, but that doesn't mean asking for permission isn't a good idea, because what you can do is, like, you can pick up the branch and talk to it and say, I would really like to use you for some magical purpose, and are you okay with that? Would you like to be used for a magical purpose? And if you want to keep the spirit alive, you can ask it to put its essence, a part of itself, of the tree it came from, into the wood, so that you can preserve its energy, and that can change the nature of the wood completely. So it's really going to depend upon how you interact with it, what you're going to get out of it, I think. Like your first staff was, when you found in the woods that was hit by lightning.
right. Right.
So, Michael says, as far as the Tree of Life, have either of you two completed it? Not completely. I know you can do it multiple times in one lifetime.
Well, I'd like to take a second to go over this one. I don't know that this is something that Siofra is too experienced with. It was one of the practices of the Golden Dawn to go up the paths of the Tree of the Life one at a time, scry them all out and see what happens there and go through it. So neither of us have completed it in that fashion, and with the background of Barden's Kabbalah, it gives you a totally different perspective. So ideally, if you finish Malkuth and the paths up, at that point, with the fullness of Barden's method, you would have mastered the earth, mastered living on earth, not want for any money, any physical thing, and say you have mastered it. And a lot of that not wanting for any physical thing might be mental or intellectual. It doesn't mean you have everything in the universe. You're not tied to materiality, but it means you're master of it, which means you have that certain amount of control. So completing the Tree of Life in that sense is a huge major proposition, and probably wouldn't be completed in one lifetime. So again, it depends on your perspective. I have done scrying up the Tree of Life, and I've went through it all the way to the top, scrying as far as I can get. It's been a while since I've done that, so I don't remember how far up I got before. I don't know, maybe Tippereth section or something, but so yeah, so that's about the only answer I can give you on that.
So Canary says, I've wanted an Athame for the longest time, but haven't seen one I felt a connection to, but I might just buy one for the sake of it. Been after one for years.
Yeah,
Well,
that can be a tough thing.
It can be. I mean, the one I ended up with turned out to be the absolutely perfect Athame for me, and it was handmade, and the handle was made from goat horn, black goat horn, and I'm a Capricorn, and the handle is in the shape of a black panther, and it's one of my spirit animals. The only thing that isn't quote unquote traditional is it's a wavy kind of blade, and traditionally it's like straight edged, but that doesn't matter. My first Athame was a letter opener that had an eagle, sort of stylized eagle head for the bottle cap opener part of the letter opener, with abalone shell in it, and it was silver. And so, yeah, it's going to really depend. But if you can find a knife maker, there are a number of them in the pagan community nowadays that make knives. So if you're particular, you might want to see if you can find someone who actually makes their own knives. We ran into a few people at some events from time to time.
That would be nice. Mine for my Athame, since it's not actually my main weapon of use, I use the wand more. But mine is simply purchased. It has a wonderful case for it made by a friend of ours. But the knife itself is just a purchased one that I'm using. I purchased and charged up. It has, there's a special connection there with the staves and things, but yeah, the Athame, the knife I use for that is just ordinary and have no connection with it. Those things sometimes are hard to, make a connection with.
So Michael says, or you says, thank you for clarifying. Michael says, do you guys believe that if you build enough energy, the world will never forget you? The world is a very long time, so I can't imagine that you could build up enough energy that the world would never forget you, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Michael says, gotta read his stuff. Canary says, oh wow, I might look up for a knife maker. That would be awesome. Michael says, as far as scrying, have you encountered anything that caused fear in your heart? I know we shouldn't be scared, but I'm just curious. I've sometimes been startled and surprised, but I haven't really seen anything that made me fear, not in a long time. When I was a teenager, yeah, I had some moments like that where, we thought there was a vampire coming to our apartment, and the dog was freaking out, and the cat was freaking out, and everyone started screaming and that kind of thing. But I doubt if anything was actually happening. It was one of those, teenage insanity moments. But not really.
No, I haven't either. It's like, well, nothing I've seen through scrying has made that much of an emotional impact to actually cause fear. Mostly it's been images. Not even when I saw a little tiny saber-toothed tiger.
You thought that was adorable.
Well, he was about 2 inches long and
Yeah.
scrying.
Not like you had to worry too much about him attacking you. Like, nipple.
Yep.
I got your nail.
It was like I was looking at it from way above, on high. That's why it was so small. But yeah, no, I haven't. I used to have lots of fears about that kind of stuff. And basically I got over them from years of doing it, not having the bad experiences that I was worried about to start with.
Yeah, it helps to sort of reinforce your sense of being in control and not having to worry. So Canary says, I sometimes get startled by beings I know, and they sometimes pretend like they're offended. And I'm like, well, maybe try 3 p.m. and not 3 a.m. if you want a better reception. Yeah, yep. I would think so. It's like, there you don't have a sense of time. And at 3 a.m., usually you're laying down flat and you're kind of like in place, so they know where to find you. So yeah. Moonfire Dawn says, I was listening to a Kabbalah podcast, and he said the best book on it was Dion Fortune's book. I love Dion, but really was surprised they never mentioned Franz Barden. Definitely glad you hooked me up.
Well,
Barden, his book is unique.
Yeah, his whole thing is unique, and he didn't try to become famous or anything. I mean, Dion Fortune published your stuff out to get people to read it, and Barden made his books
reluctantly.
Well, not reluctantly. Well, I guess there was a little bit of that in the story, but he wasn't trying to make an impression. I mean, he wasn't trying to raise his own popularity or something, so a lot of people haven't heard about him. He published it kind of quietly, and then his publisher, Dieter Ruggeberg, however you pronounce that properly, did a lot of the work of putting his stuff out and getting his books published and that after he wrote them. But he was, according to his own report, he was asked to write the books by divine providence. So then he did. But like I say, people are more aware of him now, but I think even now there's still a lot that aren't. There's a lot of people in Czechoslovakia and the areas where he grew up, in Prague and such, doing the Barden stuff. But otherwise, yeah, he's not so well known as Dion Fortune, for sure.
So Michael says, gotcha, thank you both for sharing your experience. Yeah, me
You're
too.
welcome.
I gotta stop worrying. 3 p.m. Haha, yeah. I mean, it's true. That's one of the reasons why I often put up a circle at night to sort of, give a little bit of a boundary. Although I was surprised when I woke up and found wings over top of me this morning. I guess it's happening while I'm sleeping most nights, but I'm not usually aware of it.
That makes me think of a story that I probably should tell uh, because of Michael's thing there. I did have one experience which wasn't really a bad experience, but you'd call it my own stupidity for the spirit being. And what I had done was I was a real newbie. I was starting on the ceremonial magic stuff, and I made a talisman to keep away all spirits from me. And then I made the stupid mistake of wearing it and trying to invoke a spirit from one of the angels, I think, or something that it was. And I got myself a big backblast from the talisman that I'd charged up to keep away all spirits, and then I was trying to invoke one in, and that's an example of how you can blast yourself with your own stupidity if you're not careful.
Also, verification that your talisman was working.
Well, yeah. That wasn't so bright to make one against all spirits anyway. That was just kind of lame. But yeah, those are the kind of mistakes you make when you're getting started.
But hey, we all make mistakes, and that's okay. If we were perfect, we'd be
Yeah, well, that
be
one
very
was
boring.
that was just amusing, and I didn't really get hurt. It just like wham, it like hit me. It's like, oh, that was dumb. I'm wearing my talisman.
I probably should take this off before I try this again.
Yep.
But yeah, I certainly have had them, have fun with me. But Michael says, Ian, have you heard of the magic of the pharaohs? How the kings became energy vampires after their followers abandoned them?
No, I haven't. It sounds interesting.
I haven't heard about it either. There's a lot of things we haven't heard about, and that's okay.
Yeah, I've always been I've had an interest in Egyptian magic, but not enough to actually learn enough about it to.
I've gotten several
Getting
books
where,
on it.
yeah.
Of course, I've remembered a couple of lifetimes being there, but trying to move on to the one I'm in instead of going back to the ones I've had. Maybe something like that. But nope, haven't heard about it. There's a lot of theories out there about everything. Michael says, I'm a newbie if you guys haven't guessed yet.
Well, newbie can be very relative, so.
Patricia Johnson says, do you use magic for money, as in using magic to get money? Or using magic as an exchange of energy with a spirit to do a favor? Probably the first one.
Certainly tried to use it to get money before. Can't say I've had any good success at it so far.
Somebody apparently is going to make $2 billion in this country at some point soon, because no one has won the Powerball yet. So maybe it's time to play. Mary says, I wish I could make a talisman to keep people away that worked that well. It would hit me if I tried to contact them. Oh, that would be. Yeah, slap you upside the head when you start to make the phone call and the telephone goes like whack. Oh, right, I'm not supposed to call them, am I? Put the phone down.
It's been so many years, I don't have the slightest idea anymore how I actually charged it. It's been too many years back.
Michael says, noted, Ian, no protection against all spirits. Well, no, you can have protection against all spirits, just don't wear the protection when you're trying to connect with one. See? It's like, it's not a bad thing. It's just those two things don't work together. They're like opposite things. So, Patricia says, yes, to get. Well, yeah, we've tried, but we're not very good at that. I have a Lakshmi statue on my altar. I like her better than Fortuna, who's fickle and you never know, she could give it to you and then just take it all away. But, so far, we are getting by. And that's fine by us.
That's the important part, yeah.
That's the main thing.
Yep.
We have a roof over our heads. We have a temple we can be in, which is wonderful. We have each other. We have our health. So the things that matter.
Yeah, that's true. We're happy,
Yep.
mostly, other than these things that come in and whack us upside the head every now and then.
Well, yeah, life experiences
Happens to
that you're not
everybody.
expecting that come
Yep.
out of the blue. But, and, you know, learning and so forth. As long as we have enough to pay our bills and everything, we're happy. We're not world travelers, or we're not trying to become a cult. I was actually we were watching another cult video yesterday. I'm like, how do these people do this? I mean, they do this and they come out with this outrageous thing, and people give them thousands and tens of thousands of dollars to go to these workshops
And be abused.
and then be
basically,
abused by
yeah.
these people. It's like, where are they for us? Like, I don't know. Anyway.
Well, you got to do that hardcore mass marketing.
Oh, and you also have to be an evil sociopath
Yes,
and not care about people.
Well,
so.
that's exactly it. It's the very things that, you're not willing to do that makes people be effective at selling their bull.
So, Canary says, shame, that formula sounded useful. Michael says, thank you both, got you on the Egyptian question. And thank you so much, Siofra and Ian, for your patience and wisdom. You're welcome. And gotcha. Something I would have probably done. Well, maybe you can avoid doing it, or you can try it and see if it's true. Canary says, if you guys started a cult, honestly, I'm in. Can I be a deacon? If you ever did. Yeah. Why not? Since we're not going to, you can be our deacon. So, you're in. Michael says, your thoughts on money magic? I don't see any reason not to try and do it, but then you have to follow it up with real world participation.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just, it has to come from somewhere, so it's an exchange of energy, sort of the way our society is set up, and unless you're like unless you're like one of those guys from India who had like a fortune that was in the bottom of a lake full of crocodiles, and he just dove in and got them and came back up with them, and the Indian government wanted to know where he was getting all this money, and so he said, it's down here, and he dove in and brought some up, and he said, you want to go in and have a look? They said, no, that's fine.
Apparently it was crocodile infested or something.
That's what he told me. It was crocodile infested. Canary says, yay. Nicole says, what's the most dangerous type of magic? Trying to control another person against their will, which is abuse, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was the worst kind of magic.
Well, it kind of depends on what
do they mean by
most
dangerous?
liable to injure yourself doing it, maybe,
or becoming enlightened too fast and blowing your own head open, and then you're a blithering idiot with drooling around all over. I don't know.
I mean, I know there are kinds of magic that are effective, but I don't want to do them, like Palo, which is a legitimate religion, and it's apparently an incredibly effective magic, but it really goes, well, there's a lot of practitioners that are very, very dark, not necessarily built into the magic itself, but there are definitely some really dark Palo practitioners out there.
So Jennifer says, I agree 100%. Or Canary says, or trying to control another spirit against their will. That would be it for her, yeah. That's my opinion. Canary says, I've heard of spontaneous human combustion. Maybe that's something to do with people who tap into something too much. Yeah, but they've pretty much figured out what that is now. I used to worry about that when I was a kid all the time. Michael says, damn, you definitely earned it. Vanessa V says, have you done any magic with menstrual blood? What's your take on it? Well, yes, when I had menstrual cycles, I did magic with menstrual blood, and My take on it is that it's a natural form of blood magic, that you don't have to cut yourself in order to happen, and that women's blood is very powerful. And like when we were talking about earlier, a pregnant woman being a doorway between the worlds, when she's bleeding, it's sort of the same kind of thing. It's like that door is opened and is leaving her because she's not pregnant.
But yeah, I see no problem with that, and I see no problem generally with like using some of your own blood in magic, or if you're a male, you can poke a finger and use a couple of drops of your own blood. Um, Obviously, we don't go for the animal sacrifice thing, but there are some religions that do it, what I suppose you would call properly.
Well, at least they eat
Yeah.
what they kill.
Yeah.
So Michael says, great question, Nicole. And Sarah says, me too. I was afraid of bursting into flames. Yeah. I had it all planned out. I was going to run to the bathtub, fill up the bathtub with water, jump into the bathtub, and then wait for help and stay submerged in water until they figured out how to put me out and keep me out. That was like, Scientific America did a whole
How old
article
do you
on it.
think you were at that point?
12,
12, yeah.
14, somewhere
Yeah.
in there. It was the Scientific America magazine. It was supposed to be science. I was very, very worried. So Patricia says, have you ever done a love spell way early on? And it's always a bad idea, because
Yeah,
then you
that's-
never know if the person actually loves you, if the spell works. And then if they find out you've done a love spell, then they don't know if they really love you or not. And if it's actually real love, you don't need to do a love spell in the first place. And it's sort of like a type of assault
Yeah.
on somebody, forcing them to have feelings for you that they may not genuinely have or want to have. And I consider it, just slightly less horrible than actual
Yeah,
physical rape.
Yeah, if you take the other approach towards it and try to make yourself suitable to find somebody you're going to really be compatible with and work on yourself that way, use the magic on yourself to attract somebody that you're going to really be compatible with, that type of thing, then it's kind of okay in my opinion, as long as you aren't like trying to make somebody love you who doesn't, or something like of
Well,
that
if you
nature.
become yourself, then you're going to attract the right partner.
Yeah.
And that's what you're supposed to be working on, is you. And not trying to get someone else to change in order to be compatible with you. It's like you find the person who's actually compatible instead
Right,
of the other
and
way
the
around.
problem is that can take a long time to reach the person you're compatible with, but it gives you better results. I know somebody who did a bunch of different love spells, and most of them actually worked, and they all ended up with him being in trouble one way or the other. He's also the same guy that did an invisibility spell on his car and drove away and got hit by another car. So,
Effective, but not a good idea.
Yes, there's a whole story behind that one, but don't make your car invisible and then go out and drive it. That should be another one of those obvious things, that
Well, see, on some level, he maybe didn't believe that it would work.
He wanted
to hide from the cops.
he wanted people not to notice him.
Yeah.
More than invisibility, I think he focused on people not noticing him, because he had these, he put these stickers on your plate that you can't remove that are like these zebra stripes, so they're really obvious. And so, yeah, he was hoping he could drive without being seen by the cops, because they had his license at that point, and of course he got hit.
And I think they noticed him at that point.
Yep.
So, Canary says, I used to think blood magic was a no-no, but actually it's only your own energy and power. Yeah, it's sort of like using sweat or urine, or, it's like making it uniquely you and identifying it as such. Michael says, I worried about that too. Apparently bursting into flames was a common fear. Canary says, Michael, a good question. Canary says, I don't think love spells are any different to actual sexual assault. Oh, Michael says, do you guys think having tattoos affect your magic? And I think depending on the tattoo and the person, absolutely.
Yeah,
I just don't have any myself, but
I can say that I know that there are some groups that have you to get tattoos, some magical groups that have you get tattoos to connect solidly with that magical energy. So it's a good, if you really want to put something on your body like permanently, I guess it's a good thing to do. I don't go for the tattoos much myself, but I don't see why they can't be very effective.
Okay, and so Canary said to draw in love, that's different. Michael says, thank you, Canary. Ruth says, how do you undo a love spell? Well, we had one of our former members actually did a love spell and then realized she'd done it was a bad thing, and then wanted to know how to undo it. And the trick, not really a trick, however much energy you put into making a spell happen, you have to put in at least that much energy to undo it.
Pretty much,
and
yeah.
then there will be a certain kind of karmic consequence for it.
Or well, Barton would call it like a rebound, where your energy just comes back, and it might, like if you go and make say you make a elemental with a body, and if you get it too charged up and you just destroy the body to destroy the elemental, it can give you a heart attack and things like that because of the energy coming back to you. So things that are really charged up well is recommended to decharge for sure a little bit at a time rather than just like
all
destroy it and smash it all at once, because you will get hit back by that. And if it's good energy, okay, it can still be very intense though.
Yeah. So Canary says, I have full faith my deities would not let a love spell come near me. If it ever did, I'd be having words. Vanessa V says, how do you do blood magic safely? I tend to be afraid that a spirit or something will try to control me with my blood. Don't know if I'm being paranoid. Well, if you're doing your own spell work and it's just to identify it as something that belongs to you, I don't think that a spirit could use it against you. Because if that was the case, any spell you ever did could be used against you because you're putting your own energy into it one way or another. If it's not your blood, it's your energy or, your intention.
And that's basically what you use your own blood for. You don't want to put it on something like if you made a talisman for somebody else, you don't want it to have your blood on it.
You don't want to give that away to someone else.
Because that'll be a link right to you.
And that would be the only time you'd be at risk, I would think, of having someone using your blood against you, because then they have a stronger psychic connection to yourself.
Yeah.
But Ashley says also changing the will of others, that's one of the major rules of magic, right? Absolutely.
It's one of ours anyway, yeah.
Canary says, don't use blood as an offering to any being, though. Just, I wouldn't do it. Well, yeah, you don't want to have a being that requires you to do a blood offering. Well, there are certainly deities that have that, historically speaking. A lot of the Nordic stuff, there's a lot of animal sacrifices
same thing with Santeria.
in that, and same with the Santeria and so forth. So it depends on what your practice is all about. But if you are involved in a practice like that, they have their rules about how you treat the animal, what you do with it, and so forth afterwards.
Yeah, well, not only that, but not just anybody can kill it. Yeah, they have to have a person, and I don't remember the terms at all, but they have a special person and a special ritual to go through that allows you to do that, that if you haven't gone through that, then you can't do the sacrifice of the animal either.
So Angela says, I use hair, but to each their own as far as offerings. Paige says, my life changed dramatically not long after I got a colleague tattoo. That'd be an intense energy to bring into yourself.
Yes, it would.
Canary says, everyone wants to do a love spell until it works, then they feel sick and realize it's no good. Not everyone. A lot of them, though. That's usually one of the first questions. Do you have a love spell? Michael says, a pentagram on your first finger. Gotcha, both. Ruth says, thank you. We have a friend that has the elemental symbols on her hand.
Yeah.
And she's putting them on her body in different places. So, I mean, if it's a part of your magic, I see nothing wrong with it. It's just, I don't like needles.
Yeah.
Ruth says, thank you. Angela says, I have a vow against blood magic because I have a vow against self-harm with my matrons due to prior thoughts in the past.
Yeah, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, everybody has their thing. I have a vow against animal sacrifice because of past life things.
Well, and
just now.
My opinion is when you do magical stuff, you need to feel okay with it. If you're doing something you don't feel okay with, you shouldn't do it. I mean, unless you just want to turn yourself into a fiend of some sort,
Well, you're given over your will. if you do something you don't feel comfortable with, what you're doing is you're saying that your own will doesn't matter.
What
And,
blood?
and so that makes you weak. It
Yeah.
weakens your spirit, I think.
Yeah. What part of what blood magic is really good for is anything you want to have linked with yourself. So one way of healing is to externalize yourself into a poppet. And if you do that, you'd want the blood on it because you want that strong connection. You want the healing energy you put into the poppet to come back to you.
Right.
Which is a little bit of an odd way of doing it, but still valid.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons why there's so many different kinds of practices that are out there. I mean, it depends on so many factors.
As far as, you know, you might want to use a drop of your own blood on your personal tools if you want them to be linked with you and if you're sure that nobody else is going to use them.
Hi, thank you, Ruth.
Thank you.
So Angela says, I offer up negative energy stuck on me for transmutation. I place it in crystals first and then leave it on the altar. Sounds like a good way of doing it. Canary says, I have a vow against love spells. And at Angela, sounds mutually beneficial. Angela says, definitely is. I ground into candles too and use those as offerings as well. Yeah.
Yeah, the more important thing, I think, about an offering is that it means something to you, you know, and then giving it to the tree, and that it means something. There's a bit of an emotional connection there that gets made.
Trees really like to be acknowledged as being alive. It's a funny thing. Oh, look at the rain. Getting some good rain out there.
It's just pouring down.
That's quite the downpour.
Yep.
Nicole says, what is the scariest experience you have had with a spirit or being? Watch my video on shamanic dismemberment.
Yeah, I haven't really had a scary experience with a spirit or being yet. Maybe I've just been lucky that way.
And Patricia says, have you ever done a lust spell? Nope. And we have to wind up because we're starting to go out of our time here. Angela says, trees love hugs. My favorite tree has such a happy energy when I lean into her branches and give her a hug. Yes, that's wonderful. Canary says, some deities I have never had an offering as they came in before I knew about deities, and it just gone on and they never asked for anything. Well, your energy and your thoughts and your attention is an offering as well. Ewu says, thoughts on adding cremated remains of a loved one to tattoo ink? There's a company that adds it to the ink on a molecular level. It's smooth and sanitary, but I'm curious spiritually if it's okay. I guess if you're into ancestor worship, it might be, but I don't know. I have no particular opinion about it.
I would think that by that point, the cremation and all that, it would be so separated from the ancestor that you wouldn't have to worry about a spiritual connection, but that's only kind of a guess on my part.
So Paige says, thoughts on a ritual of drinking your lover's blood. Celebrities Megan Fox and Machine Gun Kelly reportedly doing so when they got engaged. There have been some other things like that as well that have had bad side effects later down the road, especially if you're trying to unentangle yourself from somebody. So, you know, if it works and everybody stays together and everybody's happy, great. If not, not necessarily so good. Angela says, had a spirit drain me and give me nightmares once. It's how I met my matrons. Jerk spirit wouldn't leave. One of my matrons came and pushed it away, and it all started. Awesome. And Canary says that, Angela, yeah, I have had experience like that, though deities normally will nip that in the bud. All right, so it's time for us to say goodbye this week. And as usual, thank you very much for participating, for being here, and for asking good questions and everything else. It's just always a lovely chat. I guess we're going to go and enjoy the extremely wet weather we have at the moment.
Go and enjoy our dry, warm house is what we're going to do.
And let the wet weather be outside. Yep. So, bye everybody. And as usual, you can send me an email at siofrasmagicalcove@gmail.com. And we'll see you all next week, and we'll see what kind of a video we end up coming up with this week. So we'll see what we do.
Blessed be, and thank you again,
Blessed be everybody.
Ruth.